Without the humble honeybee, 1/3 of the world's crops would simply disappear. Our future would look very bleak, and bees are in danger. But today, I want to talk about the amazing science of something else that would disappear with them. Honey. So my science friends, grab a cup of coffee and sit tight for some sweet and sticky science. Welcome back to my channel, science friends. If you like these videos, please leave a like and subscribe because it really helps with the YouTube algorithm. But let's talk about the actual topic of this video, honey. This topic recently came up at a dinner table conversation. Everyone knows that it's made by bees, but how exactly do they produce honey? And why are we harvesting and eating it? To understand the science of honey completely, we first have to know how honey is made. How bees make honey. The exact procedure of bees producing honey follows a surprisingly simple 4-step process. 1. Gathering nectar. The first necessary step with which the whole process starts is obviously finding the nectar from which the honey is made from. Foraging worker bees use their highly sensitive antennae to detect nectar in nectar-producing flowers from up to 2 kilometers away. These bees are seriously smart. Not every flower produces nectar at the same time of the year or day, but worker bees know exactly when it's the right time to visit them. Once they found the flower, they suck up the nectar with their long straw-like tongue and transfer it into a special honey stomach, which is a pouch different from their normal stomach. In this process, the pollen of the flower gets stuck on the hairy legs of the bee and she carries them over to the next bunch of flowers when gathering more nectar, helping to pollinate them. A vital part to our existence, as without pollinated flowers, there simply would be no fruit or vegetables. Those pollen also help feeding young bees at the hive. Once their honey stomach is full, the bee returns to the hive. But what does full actually mean? The bee can store up to 40 milligrams of nectar. To put that in perspective, an average bee only weighs about 50 milligrams, so they are carrying up to 80% of their body weight in nectar. 2. Converting nectar to honey. Back at the beehive, younger worker bees, also called house bees, take over with making honey out of the nectar those worker bees brought home. For this, the nectar is passed over from mouth to mouth of the bee. The house bees digest the nectar for around 30 minutes with a special enzyme called invertase before passing it on to the next bee. Invertase converts complex sugars in the nectar, like sucrose, into mainly 2 simpler sugars: glucose, like our blood sugar, and fructose, fruit sugar. The bees play these Chinese whispers nectar passing game until the moisture of the nectar is reduced from around 70% to 20%. Once that point is reached, the bees take the honey to the top of the hive and deposit it in one of the open hexagonal honeycomb cells. 3. Fanning and ripening. The next step is to ripen the honey, or in other words, to dry it out. If you ever wondered why there is such a buzz in the beehive, this is one of the reasons. Working day and night, the bees in the hive use their wings to fan the honey, creating a warm breeze that dries and ripens it. But why is the water content so important? If the honey contains too much moisture, it will start to ferment, basically becoming mead, honey wine. But our busy little bees are anti-alcoholics. Apart from that, fermenting could accommodate the growth of fungi and bacteria, which could contaminate the honey, and nobody wants that. So smart! 4. Sealing the honeycomb. Last but not least, once the honey is dry enough, the bee seals the honeycomb with the fresh honey using beeswax. This makes it airtight and locks in all the goodness. Some of this honey is used by the bees to feed themselves during winter. They sometimes also mix it with pollen, as I mentioned earlier, to make something called bee bread to feed their young. Bees make a lot more honey than they actually need. Nevertheless, it is the duty and care of the beekeeper to never take too much honey. Otherwise, the bees will starve. And really, nobody wants that after they shared their delicious honey with us. But should we actually take the honey from the bees, or is it an animal exploiting product that we should avoid at all costs? Well, that's a very interesting question. The fact of the matter is that we are taking the food from the bees to eat it ourselves. Now, if you have a little beehive in your garden and you only take a little bit of honey every now and then, the bees can quite happily adapt to that and actually start producing excess of honey, so both you and the bees can enjoy the sweet treat. But That is not what is happening behind the scenes of the commercial honey harvesting that leads to the products you see on the supermarket shelf. Commercial extraction means the lovely honey that our little bee friends worked so hard for is replaced with a water-sugar mixture. This, unfortunately, is a well-known and very controversial large-scale beekeeping practice. This sugar-water cocktail basically has none of the ingredients that are crucial for the bee's survival over winter, and it also leaves the bees more susceptible for disease, leading to the massive bee decline crisis we are facing. Locally produced honey from small beekeepers is produced and harvested in a more balanced approach. But at the end of the day, it comes down to making informed decisions where you buy your honey from and how it got harvested to preserve our precious bees. Why honey has no expiration date. You might have asked yourself before why honey you get from a beekeeper has no expiration date. And indeed, it doesn't go off. But why? Honey, through all the fanning and ripening from the bees, has such a low water content that it's actually hygroscopic, meaning it attracts water from its surrounding environment. That means it can actually dehydrate bacteria and therefore avoid spoilage. Apart from that, honey contains gluconic acid, produced from the bee secretions on glucose, and a whole range of other acids which gives it a pH between 3 and 4, so pretty acidic. This, together with the fact that it also contains small amount of hydrogen peroxide, makes it a quite hostile environment for bacterial growth. And without bacteria, food doesn't really go off. Health benefits of honey. Generally, as a preamble to this chapter, I want to point out that I'm talking about raw honey, the one that you can get from beekeepers directly or at farmers markets or in well-sorted independent supermarkets. The commercial one that you usually buy in squeezy bottles in the shops went through a filtration process and was heat treated to prevent the sugars from crystallizing. That's what's making your raw honey go solid after a while on the shelf. And the heat treatment kills microbes, which means that those honeys can be stored for quite a while. That does extend the shelf life, but it negatively impacts the good things for you that are found in raw honey. So really, commercial honey is not much better than just sugar. But what exactly is in honey that's so good for you? Actually, the quality and consistency of honey highly depends on its floral origin, so the type of flower or tree the bee got the nectar and pollen from. Plants can vary massively in their chemotype, biotype, and are also influenced by the climate they're growing in. As a consequence, honey from different locations have very different compositions and therefore very different properties. Today, around 300 different types of honey are recognized. What all variations of honey have in common is their main nutritional components, carbs, making up around 95% of their dry mass. The carbohydrates in honey make it an excellent source of energy, particularly for athletes. It also contains a various suite of other constituents like proteins, vitamins, amino acids, minerals, as well as flavonoids and organic acids. The details of all of that is probably worth its own video, but to summarize the benefits, I'll just list some of the nutritional and biological effects. Honey is antimicrobial, antioxidant, antiviral, antiparasitic, antimutagenic, apoptotic, anti-inflammatory, and immunomodulatory. It is one of the oldest wound healing agents known to mankind. It can have beneficial effects on the treatment of diabetes mellitus. It can reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease when consumed regularly. It shows promising results as a nutraceutical, antioxidant, and neuroprotective therapies. And it can be used to ease and treat gastrointestinal disease. Clearly, honey cannot replace many treatments of modern medicine, but adding it to your diet surely adds a wide range of benefits. And it helps appreciate our little bee friends too. I hope you enjoyed this buzzing video. If you did, leave me a big thumbs up to support my channel and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to never miss a video in the future. If you want more fun science content, head over to the socials and follow me on Twitter, TikTok and Instagram. I recently uploaded my first sneak peek into The Secret Life of Chemists, a satirical comedy. And if you're on TikTok, you'll get them first and fresh off the press, as they will go online a day earlier than on YouTube. Go on, leave this video alone and go give me a follow. I'll see you in the next one, and until then, as always, stay sciencey. Go!